What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down some big news that just came out from President Trump and his team as they are announcing that the U.S. may be getting involved in the war with Israel and Iran. I'm also going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have the Federal Reserve announcing their interest rates, their projections, and we have FOMC with Jerome Powell giving a speech. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends at the end of July. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So, as far as SPY is going, as you could tell, we had a high up here at 606. We came back down to about 597, bounced back up to 604, came back down, back to 604, came back down, and then today we touched 602 only to reject again. So we keep on getting rejected off this resistance. Now, as of right now, we are looking a bit more bearish in terms of this trend right here, as there's going to be a risk of us returning towards that 595 area or below. But whether or not we continue to dump or if we get a big pump depends on some factors, such as what Jerome Powell says. That's why I just want to focus on what's happening with the news first. I'm going to break down the news cycle and what President Trump just said. That's super important. And then I'm going to go into the details about these charts in just a couple of minutes. So, as a reminder, the majority of stocks started off with a small pump and consolidation before we saw a big sell-off towards the end of the day. We saw Amazon in the red, retail stocks in the red, health technology in the red, finance in the red. The majority of stocks were in the red. Even many tech stocks were kind of flat, but somewhat in the red despite showing strength earlier. So goes to show there's some weakness in the market because of this war news. And we have some very, very important announcements coming out. First and foremost, President Trump has put on his Truth Social page, we now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA, according to President Trump. So that's a bold statement by him. Then he said, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, at least for now. And then he says that our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He does not want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. That's a very, very important statement by him. On top of this, he said unconditional surrender. So he's telling them to surrender. That's some very, very big news. So what's going on? What does this mean so far? So as you guys know, there's lots of history between Iran and Israel, and as Iran was developing a nuclear program, Israel was not happy about that, and we saw strikes that ended up coming. Now, both sides have been striking each other for 6 days, and it's very, very intense right now. And now even more countries are getting involved. It looks like the U.S. is getting involved. President Trump did say that if Americans are hurt in this, the U.S. will get involved. And that's what he said before. Now it's looking like the U.S. is now kind of like getting involved when it comes to our Air Force being involved and then other factors like that. So I have a couple of quotes from President Trump that are very important. And I want to actually talk about what he's been saying. So first and foremost, it's worth mentioning that President Trump has said that, if Iran does not want to back down, complete destruction of Iranian nuclear program is on the agenda. Then he also talked about how the U.S. is not going to take it easy. Then he said that President Trump made a claim in the morning about how the Federal Reserve needs to lower interest rates now. It's important to bring them down, to bring down the cost of government debt. So that's what President Trump has said. Then he said that he has not reached out to Iran for peace talks and that he's not in the mood to negotiate with Iran. He went on about that. Let's see what else he said. And then there's news coming out that Iran and Israel are still continuing to fire rockets at one another. And then he also repeated the same things about how the U.S. has control over the Iranian skies. I'm sorry, he didn't say the U.S. He said we have control over the U.S. We have control over the Iranian skies, and he said that nobody does it better than the good old USA. So that's a repeat of his Truth Social page. Then we heard him say that he basically threatened the supreme leader, and he's saying that he's not going to back down. And besides that, he was kind of repeating the same claims over again. The German chancellor came out and said that the U.S. will decide today if it's going to join the Iranian conflict or not. And it looks like as of right now, we're getting more and more involved. On top of this, President Trump also said that he is considering a serious strike on Iran. Now, He's not guaranteeing it. He said he's taking this into consideration, so keep that in mind. And then he also mentioned that he is considering launching a strike against Iranian nuclear facilities. So President Trump just said that. He's basically saying the US could get involved. And that's pretty much it for now. So that's a quick update from him. So, what does this mean once again, guys? What is the significance of this? The first thing you have to remember is that when the US gets involved in wars, there could be downside or volatility 1 month later, according to historical trends. But typically, when we get like 3 months out, the market is more like bullish than bearish. And 6 and 12 months out, the market tends to be a lot more bullish. That's what historical trends tell us. Of course, there are external factors such as recessionary risks, inflation, and factors like that. So we'll just have to see what that leads to. Keep in mind that in the Middle East, 48.3% of the total proved reserves of oil on this planet come from there. So when we have this war situation going on, we're continuing to see crude oil going up. So that's very important to mention. And that's why when we look at these charts like this, so for example, right here, we're seeing crude going up right here, and it's slowly climbing, 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 climbing. If this starts to break out a lot more, if this war continues more and more, and then the US gets involved, if this goes on for more weeks, that could also cause crude to continue to skyrocket, which is going to be inflationary. And that's something that's very important. Heading into tomorrow, the reason why it's going to be very important is because we have FOMC. Right now, there's a 97.3% chance the Fed is going to keep rates the same. So we know they're going to keep rates the same. What we don't know is what's going to happen with their interest rate projections. So, as a reminder, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, June 18th. Very minor housing data in the morning. But like I said before, at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Fed rate decision coming out. This is going to be basically them keeping rates the same. There's a 97% chance it's going to happen. But then here's the most important thing at that time. At 2:30 p.m., we have the FOMC economic projections report. We're going to see what happens for what they're projecting for interest rates the first year out, second year, the current rates, and then the longer term rates. Are these going to go up or down compared to the previous numbers right here? If they go up, that's not going to be the best of signs. That's going to be another sign that Fed has to be a bit more hawkish. If they start going downward, that's going to be a bit more bullish. So it depends on this data. Finally, at 2:30 p.m., we have the Federal Reserve press conference or FOMC press conference. That's when the big guy Jerome Powell starts his speech. So, what's significant about Jerome Powell? Jerome Powell has said that there is a risk of higher inflation in the past, and the market obviously didn't like that, which is why the Fed has been very, very cautious. He mentioned that because the labor market's holding up well and because we're seeing inflation at where it's currently at, we could handle higher interest rates for longer. The US economy could handle that based off the labor market data and the pain that we are capable of taking. So he is telling us that it's smart to just keep rates the same as is because of the risk of higher inflation due to the tariffs. He did say that in the past. And another factor now is going to be this Iranian war, the Iranian-Israel war, the conflicts. So that's going to be very important. So what does this mean? Basically, if Jerome Powell starts telling us that there's a risk of higher inflation because of the war, if he keeps saying that, that's going to be a little bit more bearish for the markets. Won't be the best. If he doesn't say anything like that, if he doesn't mention that, and he just says what he typically says, he remains ambiguous. That could be okay for the markets. So we'll see what kind of reaction we get at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. This is what the earnings calendar looks like. Very quiet for Wednesday. Not really much is coming out. And keep in mind, on Thursday, the stock market is going to be closed for Juneteenth. So we have a very short week this week. Tomorrow is going to be the last day before Juneteenth. So what's happening to the share prices? Well, we look a little bit more bearish right now, especially with all this fear about the war, crude going up, and the risk of higher inflation as a result. Right now, the charts look a bit more bearish. What does this mean? We have this flag on SPY. We hit resistance around 606 to 604, rejected, bounced, rejected, bounced, and now we're kind of like rejecting again. So this is going to be at risk of taking us all the way down towards this 595 area. Now, if you want to break resistance, start getting back above 602, you're looking for a breakout just like this to try to continue to go higher. But if you lose support right here, you're going to be looking for a big dump right back down. So from what I see right here, what I think is going to happen is we dip a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually kind of come down a little bit more towards this 595 area, and then we might consolidate. What typically happens on FOMC days is we consolidate in the morning, and then I think that there's going to be a big reaction right here at 2 p.m. once we get the economic projections report, and that's something I can't make promises about whether we get some kind of bounce or a big rug pull. It all depends. And then another factor is going to be Jerome Powell. So expect the real big move at 2 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. When we have the economic projections report, there's typically a lot of volatility. So I do expect a big move. Jerome Powell may launch this back up to higher levels. If SPY breaks out of this resistance, if we break 602.5, we could be looking for 604 plus. But if it's the opposite, we're going to be favoring a move back down towards like the 580s if we get a rug pull. So it depends on Jerome Powell and what we hear from the markets. I can't make promises about this. I do anticipate we dip a little bit more when we consolidate, but then we're going to see if we bounce or not. That depends on Jerome Powell and such. Look for a pullback tomorrow morning consolidation, then we'll see if we bounce or reject. So please keep that in mind. For the QQQ, the same thing is essentially going on, right? We have this resistance around this 533 area. If that breaks, we're looking for a push back up towards these highs. If we're bearish, you want to see us continuing to fall back down towards 525. I wouldn't be surprised if we come down a little bit more to 525, and then we'll see if we consolidate, if we either bounce back up, if we get back above 530, if we dip and then bounce back above 530 after FOMC, we're looking for a nice rebound move. If not, we could be looking for a rejection. If 525 fails us, we're looking for a move back down. My concern about the QQQ is the fact that we have a head and shoulders. So let me show you what that looks like. Give me 1 second. So you could kind of draw it out like this. Let's zoom out just a little bit. When you look at it like this resembles a left shoulder, this resembles a head, and then this resembles a right shoulder, right? So if you break support right over here, especially at 525, we're going to be at risk of dumping all the way down towards 520 or below. But if we get a bounce, if we dip to like 525 then bounce back above 530, we're looking for a bigger rebound. As of right now, we're favoring downside, so keep that in mind as time goes on. On the IWM, we also have this like head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder here. There's going to be a head up here, and then there's going to be a right shoulder. If we end up breaking past this 212 area, we're looking for a big rebound move. And if we fail here, we're looking for a move back down towards 205 or below. So keep that in mind as we have this head and shoulders, as there's going to be a risk of some more downside. So keep that in mind, guys. There's a head and shoulders right here on the IWM that's still developing. Unless we get back above 212 after FOMC, we're still technically favoring downside for 205 or below based off technicals. On ES, if we're bullish. So the first thing is the bearish move is going to be like we dipped to the low 6,000s. I think we might be doing that first. Then we consolidate. And then when FOMC starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, once we get the economic projections report and Jerome Powell speech at 2:30, if we bounce, you want to get back above 6,100 to start breaking out. If we fail, we could be looking for a move back down towards 59.39. So why is it possible we could dip? Don't forget, we also have this like left shoulder, head, right shoulder like setup. So it does favor downside a bit more, but we'll see just to be safe with FOMC. You never know. Same thing with NQ. Very similar setup, right? You have this left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. Now, if we break back above 22,000, we can try to go back up. If not, we're going to be at risk of dipping back down to 21,500. So please be very careful, at least nonetheless. For Bitcoin, we also have this very, very weak setup. There's also this sideways price action. We're at support right here, and we could be retesting 103,000. We'll see if we rebound or not. Otherwise, we could continue to fall, so keep that in mind. That's going to be very key for how we end up moving. On Tesla, we also have a double top leg structure. So that in turn is going to be very, very key for what we end up doing. We have this like not a left shoulder, kind of like a double top. If we break out above 325, we're looking for a big rebound move. If not, we could be dumping back down towards this 300 or below area. So there's kind of like a double top here, and we could be dipping lower. But it all depends, right? Depends on the war news and what happens. I think Tesla's going to test 312 tomorrow morning, then consolidate. And then we're going to see, does Jerome Powell launch this back up, or do we get a rug pull? It is a double top setup, so it does look a little bit more bearish. So please be careful, guys. With the war news going on and other factors, that's a little bit weak for Tesla. And if there's a higher risk of inflation, that also affects Tesla because Tesla is very sensitive to interest rates. So please keep that in mind. For Nvda, we look a little bit weak here. So we're going to see if 143.5 holds. If not, we could be dipping back down to fill this gap, taking us down to 142. And we need to get back above 145 to bounce. If we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of dipping lower. We're rejecting right here, so we may continue to fall. So please keep that in mind. For Aapl, we're making lower highs as well right here. So we're going to see if we could get back above 198s to rebound. If we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of dipping all the way down towards 193. So as of right now, we're making lower highs and we're favoring the downwards direction. For Netflix, this also has sort of like a a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder that's slanted, and this could be dumping back down if this fails. If we break past 1240, we're looking for a big rebound move. If we can't do that, we're going to be looking for 1200. If that fails us, we're looking for a dump back down, so give that some time, and we're going to see how things end up going. For MSTR, we were also trading sideways here. We have basically this 390 area as our resistance, and we have support at 368. I just see us kind of continuing to do this back and forth price action. So if we get back above 381, we're bouncing, and if we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of rejecting lower. This also sort of resembles a head and shoulders. They don't always have to have this lower end right here. So I'd be very careful with this. Celsius tried to push a bit, but be careful off this bearish divergence. It depends on if we get a pivot. If we're above 44, we're bullish, but if we fail there, we're looking for a move back down to 42. Supermicro is trading sideways. We love to reject off 44, and we like to get bought back up around 40. So I see us dipping to 42.5, if not this gap fill to 41.6. Palantir, it's rejecting. We did talk about this gap fill. We got to hold 37.4. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for a move back down to 133. So if 137 fails, we're looking for 133. Rivian's making lower highs unless we get back above 13.74. We're favoring the low 13s. SoFi has a bearish divergence. Unless we hold above 14.2, we're favoring a move back down towards 13.6. AMD has a bearish divergence. We could be dipping back down to 122.9. ARM is also rejecting off this bearish divergence, so we could be dipping back down to 140. PayPal is making lower highs here, so we could be dipping lower. If we don't hold above 70, we're looking for a dip back down to 69. So please keep that in mind. There's going to be that risk of downside looking at this setup. So we have like a left shoulder, sort of like a head here, and a right shoulder. That could also be favoring downside. If we failed 70.6, I do expect more downside. Watch that for tomorrow. On Coinbase, we look weak here. I do see a test of 251. If that fails us, we're looking for this gap fill to 243. On Amazon, we have a double top. We need to hold above 213 to bounce. If not, we're looking for a dip back down to 211 or below. On Meta, we have a double top here. We're going to see if we break resistance right here around this 705 area, excuse me. If not, it kind of looks like a double top here. So I'm going to be watching if 694 holds. Notice we got another close below 700, so it's not the best of signs. If we lose 694, we're looking for a dip back down towards 683, so please be very careful. Google's also rejecting, making lower highs here unless we hold above 178. We're favoring a move back down to 175 or below as well. That's also favoring downside. Microsoft is dipping here. We're going to be looking for a test of 475. If that fails us, we're going to be looking for a move back down to 470. So you want to be very careful nonetheless. DJT is making lower highs here. We're going to see if we get back above 19.5. If not, 18 flats is coming. For the VIX, okay, we have this nice looking bullish divergence. It is looking a little bit more bullish. Another thing that's worth mentioning about the VIX is if we get a break out of this wedge. So notice that we have an interesting pattern, right? We have these like falling wedges, okay? There's like a falling wedge right here. Then we broke out a little bit, falling wedge breakout, falling wedge breakout. So we love to do that. The VIX has to hold above 21.12 to remain bullish, to start pushing for like 25. If the VIX fails at 19.5, we're looking for a move back down to fill that gap. For now, we are favoring the upwards direction, and there's a good chance we try to go higher. The 10-year Treasury yield is kind of flat here. This is going to be dependent on what happens with the Fed. And then the dollar index is looking bullish. We have a nice looking double bottom, so it's favoring a move back up to 99.2. So in my opinion, I think that the market's looking more bearish for now. We are favoring 595 on SPY for the time being, just to start things off. So we might see a small dip tomorrow with all the war news, maybe even lower than that. If 595 fails us, we're looking for like 592. However, we might consolidate as we open, as the day goes on, as we approach FOMC. And then once the economic projections report comes out and Jerome Powell's speech is done with, this market's either going to bounce back up or see a massive rug pull. I think that's what's going to likely happen. So make sure you keep that in mind. So be ready for a bit more downside, and then we'll see what happens with the Fed's numbers, and also what happens with what Jerome Powell has to say about inflation and such. There is going to be a risk of him addressing this whole Israel conflict and the risk of higher inflation if we do continue to see crude increasing. So he might say something that could shock the markets. So I do expect more volatility. Sometimes when the guy speaks, we don't see that much volatility, but I think in this case, with what's going on with the war news, there's a greater chance of higher volatility. So get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a very, very big day. We have FOMC. Do what you have to do, guys. And I thank you all so much for listening. One more reminder, the stock market has tomorrow open for trading. So we're going to see trading for equities and the bonds markets. But on on Thursday, the stock market is going to be closed for Juneteenth. There was not going to be trading on Thursday, and then we will resume again on Friday. So I just wanted to give you guys clarification about this. With that being said, I'll keep you guys updated on any news involving President Trump and the war, and also with what's going on with these charts tomorrow morning. I'll be back before market open. Until then, I thank you for listening. Please have a very awesome rest of your guys' days, and peace out.